One seemingly quiet afternoon in Blackstone, Massachusetts, a horrifying discovery would shake the neighborhood to its core. It began when a 10-year-old boy playing at Erica Murray's house suddenly called his mother in a panic. His voice trembling, he told her he had found a crying baby and had no idea what to do next. Betsy Brown, the boy's mother, rushed over, but what she found inside Erica's home was nothing short of a nightmare. The smell hit her immediately, an overwhelming fetid stench that seemed to hang in the air. But the true horror lay beyond the odor. Garbage was piled high everywhere, insects crawled over filthy surfaces, and human waste smeared the walls in a disturbing display of neglect. In one room, Betsy found two little girls, one just a baby, the other a toddler, both crying and covered in grime. It was a gut-wrenching sight, but little did she know, this was only the beginning of an unimaginable nightmare. Hidden within the walls of that house were secrets so dark that they would soon unravel the tragic truth of what had been happening behind closed doors for far too long. Kevin Murray, born in 1983, grew up in a modest home in southern Worcester County, Massachusetts. His childhood was spent in the same house, working on cars with his father, Kevin Sr., who was an auto mechanic. His mother, Sharon, a homemaker, had a passion for crafts and created a warm, welcoming environment. The Murrays were known for their vibrant and friendly nature, often hosting barbecues that brought the neighborhood together. As a child, Erica was adored by those who knew her, charming, beautiful, and full of life. She was fortunate to have two older siblings who played games with her and brought joy to her days. But as she entered her teenage years in the late 1990s, a shift began. Erica became increasingly aware of her appearance, always ensuring her hair was perfectly styled and her nails immaculate. She was a diligent student, and before high school graduation, she took a job at a local fast food chain, where she met Raymond Rivera. Raymond, 7 years older than Erica, also worked at the same restaurant. Not much is known about his early life, except that he had a sister named Christine, who would later become an important figure in Erica's life. Initially, Erica and Raymond's relationship seemed sweet, even romantic, but over time it turned darker, shifting into one of control and manipulation, with Raymond taking the reins of their partnership. By 2001, at the age of 18, Erica was pregnant, a revelation that sent her spiraling into a personal crisis. The thought of attending her graduation visibly pregnant was mortifying, but a close friend convinced her not to miss the milestone. Just after graduating on July 17, 2001, Erica gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Kayla. The young family, Erica, Raymond, and their baby, moved into Erica's parents' house. By 2003, Erica was pregnant again, and the young family outgrew the space. Between 2003 and 2004, they relocated to Raymond's sister Christine's house in Blackstone, Massachusetts. It was here that Erica gave birth to her second child, a daughter named Nicola. On the surface, the family appeared perfect. Joyful moments shared on social media, birthdays celebrated, and daily life portrayed as a dream come true. But behind the filtered posts and smiling photos, the reality was far from idyllic. The house began to deteriorate, descending into chaos. Trash and clutter piled up, yet no one outside the home seemed to notice. Erica continued to post about her perfect life, cooking meals, cleaning, and attending to her children. No one suspected the horrific truth lurking just beneath the surface. As time passed, the once vibrant and confident Erica began to change. She grew increasingly withdrawn, dressing in baggy clothes, rarely leaving the house, and becoming almost a stranger to those around her. Family and friends chalked it up to embarrassment over her disordered home, but the truth was far more sinister. The nightmare Erica had been hiding came to light in the most unexpected way. It all started on a seemingly normal afternoon when Betsy Brown's 10-year-old son had gone to play with Erica's son. After some time, the boy called his mother in distress, asking for help to calm a crying baby. Alarmed, Betsy rushed over to Erica's house, not expecting the horror that awaited her. Upon stepping inside, she was immediately struck by a sickening stench. The sight before her was even worse, an overwhelming scene of filth and decay. Blankets covered the windows, casting the house in darkness. Garbage was everywhere. Rats and insects scurried across the floor, while maggots crawled in the corners. Clothes and human waste were scattered in every room. Following the cries of the baby, Betsy made her way to a room, expecting to find one child in need of help. Instead, she found two young girls. One was an infant, no older than 5 months, while the other appeared to be around 3 years old. These children, crying and rocking themselves, were alone in a home that was nothing short of a horror show. Betsy's shock was palpable. She had always believed Erica only had 2 children. But here, in the filth, lay the truth. The full tragic extent of the nightmare unfolding in front of her eyes. The 2 young girls were barely recognizable, their frail bodies covered in filth and crawling with maggots. They appeared to have been abandoned, left to suffer in unimaginable conditions. Betsy, horrified by the scene, immediately called emergency services. As she described the nightmare unfolding before her, the operator was stunned. Human waste smeared the walls, baby handprints were pressed into filth, dirty diapers were scattered across the floor, and baby bottles teemed with maggots. The Blackstone, Massachusetts, police responded without delay. What they encountered upon arrival was beyond anything they had imagined. An unsanitary, neglectful environment where children were living without proper hygiene, nourishment, or medical care. This was not the first time authorities had been alerted to the state of Erica's home. Back in 2007, Massachusetts Child Protection Services had investigated Erica's residence after receiving complaints about its deplorable condition. At that time, officials claimed there was no clear evidence of child neglect, and no further action was taken. This failure to intervene allowed the situation to spiral further into depravity. This time, however, there was no turning back. The Department of Children and Families seized custody of all 4 children, Erica's 13-year-old daughter, her 10-year-old son, and the 2 younger girls. The children were rushed to medical facilities for immediate evaluation, and the results were devastating. The 3-year-old girl was so malnourished she lacked the muscle strength to sit up without help, and her sensitivity to light was a further sign of her prolonged deprivation. The 5-month-old infant had a flattened head, a condition caused by being left lying on her back for extended periods without proper care. Neither of the younger girls had birth records, and both were severely underweight, stark evidence of their neglect. But it didn't end there. The older children were also in critical condition. Both the 10-year-old boy and the 13-year-old girl were discovered to have severe ear infestations, their ears infested with maggots and covered in layers of earwax so thick that their eardrums were completely obscured. The sheer horror of what these children had endured was undeniable. When Erica was informed of the removal of her children and the devastating conditions they had been living in, her reaction stunned the authorities. She appeared unfazed, showing little emotion or remorse. She agreed that the children should no longer remain in such an environment, but displayed no real concern for their well-being. Instead, she seemed preoccupied with the disappearance of her pet cat, a response that left investigators questioning her mental state and her ability to comprehend the gravity of the situation. In the days that followed, police returned to Erica's home for a more thorough search, armed with a warrant. What they uncovered next would send shockwaves through the community. Hidden away in 2 separate closets, investigators found the decomposed remains of 3 infants. One of the babies was wrapped in adult sweatpants, with the umbilical cord and placenta still attached, indicating the child had likely been left to die shortly after birth. The discovery of these remains pointed to an unimaginable level of neglect. The bodies were sent to the medical examiner's office, but their advanced decomposition made it difficult to pinpoint exactly when the infants had died. Forensic experts speculated that the deaths might have occurred weeks or even years earlier, adding another layer of horror to the already tragic story. The medical examiner's report also raised the possibility that one of the infants might have been born alive, although this could not be confirmed due to the condition of the remains. This revelation, combined with the grisly discovery of the infant corpses, sent shockwaves through the local community, sparking intense media coverage and public outrage. When questioned by police about the infant's remains, Erica initially denied ever giving birth to other children who hadn't survived. But as the authorities presented their evidence, Erica's story began to crumble. She eventually admitted to one stillbirth, claiming that she had panicked when she discovered the baby wasn't breathing and placed its body in the closet. When detectives informed her that 2 more bodies had been found, Erica's denial shifted. She first insisted that these babies had also been stillborn, but later confessed that one of them, a baby girl, had lived for about a week before passing away. When asked why she hadn't called for medical help or attempted to revive the infant, Erica explained that she had been paralyzed by fear. She had delivered these children in secret, using the bathtub while her family slept, and had hidden them from the world, fearing Raymond's reaction. Erica claimed that she felt trapped, unable to escape her situation. She feared Raymond would leave her if he discovered her pregnancies and the births, and this fear prevented her from seeking help. DNA testing confirmed that all 7 children, both the living and deceased, were Erica and Raymond's biological children. Raymond, visibly shaken, claimed he had no knowledge of the 2 younger girls being his daughters or of the 3 infants who had died in the house. But police found his story hard to believe. How could Raymond, who shared a bedroom with Erica, not have known about the pregnancies or the presence of the children? How could he not have noticed the 2 young girls living in the house, especially since Erica had supposedly only revealed their existence to him later? Despite their suspicions, authorities couldn't find enough evidence to charge Raymond with more serious crimes beyond drug-related offenses. They had uncovered a marijuana-growing operation in the basement, but the truth of what had happened to those children, what Erica and Raymond had concealed, remained far more harrowing. Erica was hit with a barrage of charges, each more harrowing than the last: second-degree murder, concealing a death, assault and battery on a child causing significant injury, reckless endangerment of a child, and 2 counts of animal cruelty related to a dog and a cat removed from the property. As the grim details of what would come to be known as the House of Horrors emerged, Erica's neighbors began to reflect on the troubling signs they had overlooked. One neighbor recalled a foul odor wafting from the house, but dismissed it at the time, unable to imagine the true horror behind closed doors. Another neighbor remembered seeing a dog tied up with an unusually short leash in the yard, but never thought to report it. A postal worker mentioned that the house always seemed unkempt, and that the children frequently ate their breakfast in the garage. A former childhood acquaintance of Erica's expressed disbelief, stating that while Erica had always visited her mother with her 2 older children, she had never seen the younger ones, or anything unusual. At Erica's workplace, where she had sold handmade crafts and candles, colleagues recalled that Erica had abruptly quit just 2 weeks before the chilling discoveries were made. Meanwhile, Raymond's co-worker revealed more about the troubling state of their home. Raymond had confided in him about issues with hygiene and finances, and also mentioned retreating to the basement to cultivate and use marijuana. Outwardly, Raymond maintained a seemingly clean and polished appearance. He wore dry-cleaned clothes to work, kept a tidy desk with pictures of Erica and their two older children, and appeared to live a normal life. But according to his co-worker, Raymond once admitted that despite all their problems, he couldn't leave Erica. He loved her and didn't want to hurt her. The home where these horrors took place was condemned and deemed uninhabitable. The Murray house was overrun with flies, rats, feces, and piles of used diapers that reached nearly 3 feet high. Hazardous materials teams worked around the clock to decontaminate the property and search for any additional remains, fearing the worst. The cleanup effort, which involved removing carpets, tearing down contaminated walls, and demolishing shelves, cost more than $25,000. This hefty bill fell to Raymond's sister, who owned the house. Once investigators were sure no additional remains were hidden, the property was demolished. The aftermath left the community in shock, grappling with the horror of what had unfolded right under their noses. How could such appalling conditions have persisted unnoticed for so long? In the days following the chilling discoveries, the Murray family's friends, relatives, and neighbors gathered in solemn vigils outside the now demolished home. They left stuffed animals, balloons, and flowers as a tribute to the children who had suffered unimaginable neglect. The community remained in shock, even as Erica Murray, 31 at the time, faced her first court hearing in December 2014. She pleaded not guilty to all charges. Though initially held without bail, the court set a $1 million bail during the trial, a decision that many felt was lenient, considering the severity of the case. It wasn't until June 2019, 5 years later, that Erica's trial finally began. Throughout the proceedings, she showed little emotion except when photographs of the infant's remains were displayed in court. Her defense team argued that the 3 deceased infants might have been stillborn, asserting that their deaths were not a result of Erica's negligence. The prosecution, however, painted a much darker picture. They argued that Erica had abandoned and neglected her 5 youngest children, leading to the deaths of 3 of them. Prosecutors presented Erica as a mother who forced her children to endure a filthy, squalid existence amid piles of trash, dead animals, diapers, and human waste. They maintained that at least one of the infants had been born alive and later perished due to Erica's failure to seek medical help. The court was informed that after moving into the Blackstone home, Erica secretly gave birth to 5 more children, hiding each pregnancy under baggy clothing. Witness testimonies painted a heartbreaking picture of the conditions inside the Murray home. Betsy Brown, the neighbor who had discovered the horrors, took the stand to recount the filthy, chaotic environment she encountered. She described baby handprints smeared on the walls, human waste scattered across the floor, maggot-infested diapers, and the overwhelming stench of decay. The jury listened in horror as recordings of Erica's police interrogations played in court. In the footage, Erica admitted that one of the infants had been born alive but died shortly after. She claimed that panic had stopped her from calling for help. Her defense attorney suggested that Erica's mental health struggles played a major role in her failure to act. Forensic psychologists testified that Erica suffered from a personality disorder and had endured emotional abuse at the hands of her partner, Raymond. They argued that Erica genuinely believed she was doing her best as a mother, despite the horrific environment she allowed her children to live in. The defense further pointed to Raymond's controlling behavior, noting that he had been adamant about not having more children for financial reasons, yet had taken no steps to prevent pregnancies, placing the burden entirely on Erica. They suggested that untreated postpartum depression may have led Erica to hide her pregnancies and keep the infants secret, fearing Raymond's reaction if he found out. The prosecution rejected the claim that Erica's actions were the result of fear or mental illness. They painted her as a woman who lived a life of secrecy and deception, one that ultimately led to the deaths of her children. They contended that Erica had known exactly what she was doing and had countless opportunities to help, but chose not to. The judge ultimately ruled that there wasn't enough evidence to prove that the infants had been born alive. She acknowledged the tragedy of one infant's death, but noted that the prosecution had failed to show that Erica directly caused it. As a result, Erica was acquitted of second-degree murder and 2 counts of reckless endangerment of her older children, ages 13 and 10. However, she was convicted on charges of animal cruelty and assault and battery related to the severe neglect of her 3-year-old and 5-month-old daughters. The judge remarked that the nature of the case was extraordinary, noting that Erica's own children were the most vulnerable and defenseless victims. Despite the grim findings, the court could not impose a more severe punishment, considering Erica's mental health issues as mitigating factors. In July 2019, Erica Murray, now 36, was sentenced to 8 years in prison. By the time she was sentenced, she had already served nearly 5 years in custody, meaning she would have to serve an additional 2 to 3 years before being eligible for parole. Her parole conditions included mandatory mental health treatment and a prohibition on contact with children under 10 years old for 5 years. 3 months later, on October 29, 2019, Raymond Rivera, 42, reached a plea agreement with prosecutors. He pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including assault and battery on a child causing substantial injury, 2 counts of reckless endangerment of a child, 2 counts of animal cruelty, and 1 count of possession with intent to distribute a Class D substance. Raymond's attorney had previously filed a motion in August 2016 to dismiss the charges, arguing that he had never had custody of the 2 neglected children found in the home. Prosecutors countered, asserting that Raymond, as the father, had shared responsibility for the children's well-being. The judge sentenced Raymond to 3.5 years for the assault charge, crediting him with the time he had already served. For reckless endangerment, he received a 4-year sentence, which would run concurrently with his prior sentence, with an additional 136 days credited. Raymond was also sentenced to 3 years of probation for the remaining charges, with conditions including no unsupervised contact with children under 10, compliance with all service plans from the Department of Children and Families, and adherence to probate court orders. Additionally, he was required to undergo substance abuse evaluation and treatment, remain drug-free with random testing, and receive mental health treatment. Raymond's lawyer expressed that his client had taken on more responsibility than he should have, given his role in the situation. Despite this, Raymond was determined to put the ordeal behind him and move forward. The latest updates revealed that the couple's 2 older children, aged 13 and 10 at the time of the tragic events, had been placed under the guardianship of Raymond's family. Meanwhile, Erica Murray had been released from prison by the time the investigation concluded. As for the 2 young malnourished daughters who had been found alive in the appalling conditions, reports suggested that they had initially been moved through several foster homes. The 3-year-old, known to authorities as Liza, showed significant progress in her recovery. However, conflicting reports about their current situation suggested that while some sources claimed the girls remained in foster care, others indicated that they were now living with their paternal grandparents and older siblings. The uncertainty surrounding their whereabouts reflects the complex nature of the situation and the ongoing efforts to ensure their well-being.